Welcome to another episode of Why Not. Society has changed, and Gen Zs like me can put up a story for 800 people to view, but can't make a simple call to the dentist. Seriously, texting for hours, Snapchat, sending voice notes, making TikToks, joining Discord with strangers. We all have done that. But when that phone rings, immediate panic. I was also somebody who didn't like attending calls at all. An unexpected phone call today feels like an emergency more than a communication. And honestly, this is not introversion. Something really deeper changed in how people communicate. Because for the first time in history, talking live feels less stressful than talking on the phone. Why Gen Zs hate phone calls so much? And hold on, before you say anything to us, it's not about the communication skills. It's not about us being bad at communication. It's actually connected to psychology, social media, texting culture, anxiety, control, and how smartphones completely changed human interaction. Because earlier, phone calls used to feel endearing. Now they just feel intrusive. They feel invasive. And once you notice why, it totally starts making sense. This is the biggest reason why phone calls are a headache. Texting is controllable. When you text, you think before replying, you can edit the text, you can delete awkward things, you can respond whenever you want. Phone call removes all of these options. Now your brain has to think immediately, reply immediately, and respond in real time. And for a generation raised on the edit communication, this could be exhausting. Gen Zs can write a perfect paragraph communicating exactly what they want. But English fumbles so bad on a call. Texting basically gives you time to perform socially. Phone calls demand spontaneity. And here's something little concerning. People raised now might be losing their spontaneity. People will lose practice with spontaneity. Being alert, being socially aware, reacting appropriately. You lose the practice to do that. And when you are in a life situation, we happen to make real mistakes. And you know what's funny? Today people actually rehearse the phone calls before actually making one. Maybe ordering food or customer care or confrontation with a friend. Half of the adult life stress is about picking up that phone. Why are you calling? Earlier, phone calls meant communication. Now they just mean danger. Think about it. Your brain immediately thinks, what happened? Why didn't they text? Is something wrong? Am I in trouble? And if somebody calls twice? Because messaging apps changed expectation. Now communication became asynchronous. Low pressure, optional. You can answer when you want. Phone calls break that system. They want your immediate attention, which honestly feels aggressive now. Now the Gen Z looks at the phone, stares it silently, and waits for destiny to decide. How about social anxiety and performance pressure? Now here's the serious part. A lot of Gen Z and other new generations, their communication happens online, which means a lot of people are actually exposed to polished personalities, edited responses, perfect conversation, and curated identity. And over time, real-time interactions starts feeling high pressure because live conversations can't be edited. You can't backspace, rewrite, or edit. Phone calls demand authenticity. And when authenticity starts feeling scary, it's when you start editing yourself. This is also why noise notes became extremely popular. You can re-record, think slowly, avoid live pressure, and most importantly, set a tone. Voice notes are actually phone calls without the commitment issue. Smartphone has changed human behavior. Now let's talk about something even more interesting. Earlier, boredom forced interaction. Now boredom gets solved immediately. People don't randomly call friends anymore. They send memes, react to stories, or watch reels, or make one. Communication became fragmented. Tiny interaction took up the place of long, meaningful, deep conversations. And here's something somebody wise said once. People talk all the time today, but they don't have conversations. And honestly, social media has also made people feel extremely isolated and alone. And honestly, social media has made people look accessible, which can create exhaustion. That's why a phone call suddenly feels super intense, because mentally people already feel overstimulated. Notification, text, emails, reel, work chat, group chat, everything constantly demands attention. At this point, an incoming phone call can actually feel like an homework. Because texting allows emotional distance. Phone calls have no escape. That's why even close friends sometimes text you, can I call you later? Which honestly is a little concerning. And as setting boundaries, people have started asking for the permission to do a phone call. Smartphones actually accidentally made talking feel formal. And honestly, we Gen Z don't hate communication. We hate unpredictability. Texting feels manageable, phone calls feel extremely demanding. The funniest part from all of this, you know what is it? Just take a guess. Gen Z actually spends hours communicating. Just differently. Discord calls, gaming chat, voice notes, Instagram DMs, Snapstreak, group chats. We're extremely social. Just not the traditional social. The Gen Z actually didn't stop communicating. They redesigned communicating. And honestly, every old generation will always feel that the new generation is a little strange. A generation before us loved phone calls. A generation before that thinks that there's nothing more beautiful than a love letter, because that letter would remind me of you. But now, people send memes by saying this reminded me of you, which somehow now counts as an emotional connection. So here's the thing: Gen Z doesn't hate communication. They hate pressure, unpredictability, interruption, and forced immediacy. And phone call represents all four of them, which honestly says something bigger about modern life. Everything today is customizable, edited, controlled, low friction, and phone calls are one of the few things that are left raw and immediate. That's why we might feel a little uncomfortable. The phone calls didn't stop being useful. People just got more comfortable with communicating without actually talking.